Olé! It is time for Espagnole sauce, our fifth and final mother sauce that had its origin in Spain. Let's get to it. We begin with roughly chopped mirepoix. I have one stalk of celery, one medium-sized carrot. I had baby carrots, so I'm using that before they go bad, and I'm also using a large shallot. It's more typical to use an onion, but a shallot is what I had available, so I would use one large shallot or a half of an onion if you have it. I'm also preparing one clove of garlic just by roughly chopping through. So with that, we have 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. We have our roughly chopped mirepoix with carrots, celery, and shallot or onion, and 2 tablespoons of flour. You can see what we're going to form here. 2 cups of beef stock, 2 tablespoons of tomato puree, and 1 bay leaf, about 1/4 teaspoon of black peppercorns whole, 1 clove of garlic, and 2 stems of parsley. We'll complete our mise en place by making sure that our equipment is ready to go. We do need a large saucepan, wooden spoon, and whisk. You'll also need to grab a small saucepan and a large sieve, which I'll show you in just a moment. Our unsalted butter is going to hit the pan first until we have melted it. Then our mirepoix enters the pan as well, and we'll saute it until it becomes lightly golden. It takes about 5 minutes. In the background, I have my 2 cups of beef stock also just coming to a simmer, trying to get it to a similar temperature as my pan so that the sauce will form easier and smoother in just a moment. When the shallot or onion has become translucent, it is time to add the flour. And at this point, you should know what we're creating, right? We have our butter and we have flour, so we are making a roux. But this roux is a little bit different in that we are going to cook it for longer. So it's going to become a darker color, which is going to add to the color of our sauce later. So this takes about 5 minutes. Notice the difference in the color in the pan. It's a little hard to see because of the vegetables, but it is a darker color. It takes about 5 minutes. Then we're going to slowly add in our beef stock. I've switched to a whisk for a reason, and that's to get any of the lumps out of the way. The vegetables, again, do kind of make it a little bit harder, but it is an important step to make sure that we have no lumps at this step. So I'm adding slowly until I start to see it thicken up, and that's when I add another splash of the beef stock, already noticing a difference in that texture. The dark sauce that we have here is due to 2 things. Obviously, the beef stock is adding a darker color than maybe our velouté sauce that just used chicken stock. But another big moment was the cooking of that roux to this medium brown stage. It can take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes depending upon how low your heat is. My warning to you would just be to make sure that it is relatively low. We don't want our heat to be too high, or else we might accidentally kind of burn that roux by burning the milk solids that are still in there. I wanted to point out here that at the beginning when I was adding the beef stock, it thickened up very quickly, and the more beef stock that's entered the pan, the less that has happened, and that's normal, and that's because the flour has not reached back to its simmering point. Flour and all starches need to come to almost a boiling point before they are able to physically thicken up the liquid, so that's what we're waiting for here. I'm whisking to remove lumps, and I'm waiting for it to come back to a simmer, almost boil. Now that our small bubbles are back, it is time to add in some things that will bring Espagnole sauce its unique flavor. We add in 2 tablespoons of tomato puree, 2 stems of parsley, 1 clove of garlic, our whole peppercorns, and our bay leaf. Now at this point, you're probably noticing and thinking it rather odd that things are so roughly chopped and that I'm just adding in whole peppercorns. Don't panic, we're actually going to remove them, and you'll see that at the end of our simmering time. Now what I need to see is this sauce to reduce by about half. So what you're going to see is that I use the handle of a wooden spoon to measure the amount of liquid in the pan, and that way I'll know how much reducing I still have left to do. I'll just use it as a ruler throughout the simmering time. I want to reduce my heat until I just see a slight simmer in the pan, and we're going to simmer for about 20 to 30 minutes. Don't forget about it. Remember to come back every 5 minutes or so and give it a quick stir. This is a good time to check the thickness, making sure that it's not scorching on the bottom. It shouldn't be if your heat is low, but it's good to check. And a good time to also check to see how much your mixture has reduced. So we've reduced about 1/4 of the way. 20 minutes have now elapsed, so I'm going to use my handy-dandy wooden spoon ruler to check the amount of reducing that we have seen, and as you can see, it has reduced by about half. You can also see the change in the texture that we have achieved. It is now definitely nappe. It is now time to remove the solids by pouring the Espagnole sauce into a fine mesh sieve. And that is going to remove those large pieces of mirepoix, the parsley, the whole peppercorns, and allow our sauce to be very smooth and very flavorful without chunks. Now, because you want probably as much Espagnole sauce out of this as you can get, it is something that I like to do to just gently move the sieve around and the solids around in the sieve to let a little bit more slip through. I don't want to press the vegetables down or anything of that sort, though. There you have it. You now have a smooth Espagnole sauce that's flavorful and delicious. It is best served with red meat, so pork chops or steak would be really good pairing with this beautiful sauce. Now, this mother sauce is perfect just the way that it is. However, I'm going to take it one step further and take this mother sauce into a derivative sauce, a very well-known one known as Demi-Glace. To do this, we will take equal parts of our Espagnole sauce to our beef stock. So I'm using about a cup of our Espagnole sauce with a cup of beef stock and a couple extra flavorants. I have 4 whole peppercorns, a bay leaf, 2 parsley stems, and a 1/4 of a teaspoon of dried thyme. All of these ingredients are added into a large saucepan and we will bring it to a simmer. Again, what we are wanting to do is reduce the amount of liquid in this pan to about half. So I'm going from 1 inch to about 1/2 of an inch, and this time I used a fancy ruler. You can expect that the reducing of this sauce will take approximately 30 minutes, but of course, keep checking. Almost there. About 10 minutes later, we have perfectly reduced this sauce. As the sauce has reduced, it is not only concentrated in flavor, it has also gotten a thicker texture. You can see that in the pan. I'm using the back of a spoon to illustrate nappe, how it coats the back of a spoon. So I'm choosing to reduce this sauce just a little bit more. What I want is a texture of a sauce that's going to hold a nice swipe on a plate. So I'm using the wooden spoon to create these spaces on the bottom of the pan, and I'm watching to see how quickly that sauce runs back over the spaces that I've made, because that tells me how it's going to act on a plate. When it's reached the perfect texture, that is when I will remove the sauce into a fine mesh sieve once again to remove the solids that I've added for flavor. I'm using a spoon just to move the sauce around in the fine mesh sieve to allow a little bit more sauce to slip through. I reserved a bit of our Espagnole sauce before I reduced it just to be able to show you the physical difference here. It gets thicker, it gets darker, and more concentrated in flavor as well. Now it's time for plating. I'm going to use this Demi-Glace for a little bit of visual appeal as well as excellent flavor by making these swipes on the plate. I'm choosing to serve today with some sautéed mushrooms and asparagus and steak. This sauce is worth the time and worth the effort. It is a delicious mother sauce and an even more delicious derivative sauce known as the French Demi-Glace.